Next speaker will be Tobias Brenner from Deloitte, and he will be speaking on SSI, or self-sovereign identity in practice. And while he's getting set up, I want to use the chance again to motivate all of you to reach out on the Telegram group to our amazing staff, and I want to thank our partners. I want to express how grateful we are that all of you made this possible. You can see them behind me, by the way. If you're ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, then the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome from my side. Thank you very much for listening in on my talk. Switching a little bit gears here, I would like to talk to you about self-sovereign identity. And why do I want to talk to you about that? It's because we believe at Deloitte that this will be a game changer in how we handle identity in the future and how we are working with identities and credentials also in banking. So in the context of cryptocurrencies, why will this be relevant in the future? We probably all remember the past, how we were handling our banking, how we were interacting with our bank. So really, we had one bank we did get some cash, maybe we did some mobile payment, but in the end, it was about the bank itself, about getting money, about maybe some insurance that they would sell on the side, maybe some traditional assets even, some people invested in gold and whatnot. But the landscape really changed with digital currencies. What we see right now is we actually do still have these traditional assets. We still have the mobile payment more than ever. We have brokers, we have online brokers, but we also do have a lot of crypto brokers nowadays. We have a lot of different exchanges. We have way more players and way more different interaction partners for me as a sort of native person, trading different cryptocurrencies, trading digital assets in the first place. And all of these players on this market, they have one thing in common once they get regulated, and they have to be regulated at some point in order to create a proper market, and that's that they need to know who they're actually working with. So they all have to have some KYC process in place, and they all have to have some AML processes in place, so anti-money laundering, what's happening with the money, where's the money coming from, where is it going, if it's scaling up to really huge amounts of money. They have to know certain things about their customers and their clients. And that's where they need to know these information. That's where probably all of us know, like video ident systems or even post-ident or any identification system that's currently up on the market, and that's just not efficient. It's not scaling well enough, and the data privacy is not super good. So a new concept that's actually up on the market at the moment, which is based on decentralized ledger technology, is self-sovereign identity. So looking into what self-sovereign identity really is, and what we try to do here is really recreating what's happening in the real world with identities and identity proof in the digital world. So if you imagine you are, let's say you're driving your car on the Autobahn, for example, in Germany, and you are getting stopped by the police, then you have to somehow prove that you are person XYZ, and you have to prove that you are allowed to drive a car. So in this situation, we do have the police as the verifier. They want to check a certain identity credential from you, that you are allowed to drive a car and that you are a specific person with a birth date, for example. It's myself as the driver. I'm the holder in this ecosystem. I hold an identity or a credential of that identity. And then there's the third party, the issuer. Someone who issues a credential, who actually proves that I am a certain person, or I am allowed to do certain things, or just basically proves anything that you want to prove on that blockchain. Coming back to my example, the driver's license, it's issued by the German government. So the German government is the issuer of this document, of this proof that I hold. I'm the holder, I got it in my wallet, and the verifier is the police. I can show it to them, and what they're doing is they're looking at the security the different security components of this driver's license, and they say, okay, this was issued by the German government. I do trust the German government that they are allowed and they have the authority to say he's allowed to drive a car. So I do believe that he is allowed to drive that car, and I'm fine. That's what we call triangle of trust. And that is rebuilt in the digital world. And what we're doing here is we are using a blockchain technology in the background, which actually is not that important. But what's important is that there are issuers in that network. They have verified identities, the German government, for example, and they issue credentials. Let's say the driver's license in a digital way. And what they do, they not only issue the complete driver's license, they only issue very, very small credentials as part of it. For example, I am allowed to drive a car, all right? I'm allowed to drive a motorcycle. I have a driver's license for more than 2 years, could be a credential. And I get all of these credentials as a holder to hold on them myself. So I'm the only one who really has to prove the driver's license as a digital form, and I'm storing that, and I can then show it to anyone who's interested in it. I don't have to show anything on the driver's license. I only have to share what I really need to share. For example, if I'm driving a motorcycle, I only have to share that I'm allowed to drive a motorcycle for more than 2 years, maybe, because it's a big engine motorcycle, if that's relevant. So I can do that, and once the police, coming back to our example, checks, they can digitally verify that the signature, so really the digital signature of that document is valid, and they have a complete check and the complete possibilities to see whether or not this credential is valid or has been revoked or is not existent at all. So we do have that full chain of checking of credentials, which gives us a lot of possibilities, plus the person, so the holder, has full control who he's showing the data or sharing the data with and which data he's actually sharing with whom. So what's currently happening in the German market is the German government is pushing really strong into that SSI ecosystem. So a lot of major industry players, we are part of that as well, are part of a big project who is creating a decentral base. So it's based on Hyperledger Arias and Hyperledger Indy. So basically a network where these credentials can be put on, which has a specific standard. And we are scaling it out first on a German level, but with the main goal to scale that up to European or maybe even global scale, potentially not with one network, but with a network standards. So these credentials are interchangeable in between different networks. And that way they can interact with each other, and that way they're not exclusive, but they support each other, these networks. There are also private players who are very strong on the market. ID Union is one very good example of them. And there are currently different ideas to bringing them together, as I said, to standardizing the way that these credentials are issued. Now, coming back to our digital currencies space that we are looking at. Now, I've mentioned the KYC process at the very beginning. So once you let's say register on a new broker, it would be very easy to just give them the proof of your digital ID, for example, issued by the German government with your name, your address, your birth date, for example, and that would streamline the onboarding process in a very, very, very simple manner. So So there is a huge potential to improve these processes and actually to create the possibilities for all the market players to really be compliant with current or even future regulations in this market. Going even further with AML processes, for example, each bank, and now thinking back at this triangle of trust, the broker, for example, or the banks, they are not limited to the to the verifier role. So they are not only checking, but they can also issue their own credentials on this network. So, for example, they have checked my identity, and they can then even issue something that I have completely run through the regulatory process for onboarding on a crypto exchange, and they can create a proof on that blockchain layer, and I can then take that and go to another broker and show it to them, and they can actually verify it and fulfill the requirements without having to run through that process itself. And in that way, a huge ecosystem will be created, or is currently actually being created, that gives a ton of possibilities. And the creation of a bank account is actually one of the first pilot use cases that's currently being piloted on the German government level, and we are looking into expanding them with our clients and with different new entities to actually get the most out of that decentral system that helps us really with this existing standards to actually create such use cases or to fulfill such use cases that are already needed at the moment. Obviously, the whole SSI concept is not limited to only the banking space. I mentioned already, it's really an open ecosystem. Everyone can create credentials on base of this network. So I can even write a credential on top of there. The question really is, who is the verifier that actually trusts me or that actually gets something out of this information in the second place? So what we're currently doing with our clients, and we're highly invested in the topic ourselves at Deloitte, is we look into some use cases. Actually, three major use cases, one being access management. So moving with our clients from a traditional access card and basically employee card of your employees to a digital version of their card that your company, for example Deloitte, then creates this credential that I'm working at Deloitte, and with this credential I can then enter the Deloitte building, for example. So digitalizing the keys is also something that's working very, very well on the SSI ecosystem. Then there is a hotel check-in use case. So myself being a consultant, if you check in at a hotel, you always have to provide two things: your personal data. You should also provide your ID card, and then you have to provide, if you're on a business trip, the information of your hotel if you're not a regular visitor at that specific hotel. So the hotel check-in is also a pilot use case there, where you have two proofs while checking in at the hotel, or two credentials, one being your ID issued by the German government, and one being the address of your employer that's issued by your employer. And these two information are everything that the hotel needs once you check in, basically with one QR code or an NFC scan that gives all the information to the hotel that they need in a manner that they actually fulfill the requirements from the German government when it comes to hotel check-ins. The driver's license, also one big use case that we're looking into. We're helping one client, for example, implementing their checks of their employees if they have a valid driver's license to drive the company cars, which they have to do every 6 months. That process is being digitalized to use that newly issued digital driver's license from the German government. And then there are a ton of different use cases that we're currently discussing. We're just at the very, very beginning of this huge potential of the SSI ecosystem that we're actually creating. And we're super happy that in Germany we are in a very strong position, since the German government is highly driving that topic. And we're looking forward to further developing it. And now I'm happy to address any of your questions if you have. So thanks a lot.